Ambassador Grix's mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed the final diplomatic transcript for the 100th time. 3 cycles had passed since the humans had walked out of the Galactic Council chambers, and the silence from Earth was becoming unsettling. "Still nothing from their home world?" asked Subcommander Thane, his purple skin rippling with concern. "Nothing," Grix replied, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "No trade requests, no diplomatic channels, no angry transmissions. Just silence." The Zenthri diplomat had seen many species rage after failed negotiations. The Korthak would send threatening hollow messages. The villain empire would impose trade sanctions. The Nexus Coalition would flood subspace with propaganda. But humans? They simply left. "Perhaps they are sulking," Thane suggested, though his voice carried little confidence that Grix's laugh was bitter. "Species that sulk don't colonize 47 worlds in less than 2 centuries, my friend. Species that sulk don't turn asteroid mining into an art form. No, this silence means something else entirely." On the bridge of the cargo hauler Lucky Strike, Captain Jake Morrison was having the worst month of his life. First, the Galactic Council had rejected humanity's application for full membership, citing aggressive expansion tendencies and concerning military capabilities. Then, every major shipping lane had suddenly become complicated. "Jake, we have got another problem," called out his pilot, Rebecca Torres, from the cockpit. The Korthak hegemony just declared the Sigma route off limits to human vessels. "That's the 3rd route this week," Jake muttered, running his hands through graying hair. "What's their excuse this time?" "Security concerns," Rebecca said with a snort. "They are worried about human unpredictability following the diplomatic incident." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Unpredictability, right? Because asking for equal representation in a government that affects our trade routes is so unreasonable. The cargo hold behind them contained 50,000 tons of rare Earth metals bound for the Nexus Coalition. Metals that were now effectively stranded because every alien government was suddenly afraid of letting human ships through their space. "Boss," came a voice from the communications array. Marcus Webb, their comm officer, looked pale. "You need to hear this." The transmission crackled to life, filled with static and panic. "Mayday, mayday. This is the merchant vessel Horizon's Edge. We are under attack by villain raiders in the Kepler sector. They're not asking for cargo. They're just firing. Please, anyone who can hear this." The transmission cut to static. Jake's jaw tightened. "How far are we from Kepler?" 8 hours at maximum burn," Rebecca replied. "Set course. Full speed." "Jake, we are not a warship," Marcus protested. "We are hauling freight with a skeleton crew. That ship has 30 souls aboard," Jake replied coldly. "And apparently, we are the only ones who give a damn." In the gleaming spires of the Nexus Coalition capital, President Zara Malari paced her office like a caged predator. The holographic reports floating around her painted a picture she didn't like at all. 17 human merchant vessels attacked in the past week, she said to her aide, Lieutenant Colonel David Park. All in supposedly secure space. All by different species. All with the same pattern. They are not after cargo. It's systematic, Park agreed. His Korean accent was thick with anger. They are testing us, seeing how we will respond to attacks on civilian targets. Zara stopped pacing and stared out at the city below. They think we are weak because we tried diplomacy first. They think isolation will break our spirit. She turned back to Park, her green eyes hard as emeralds. They have no idea what they have unleashed. Mung? David, how long since we have had a proper military exercise? The fleet hasn't run full-scale maneuvers in 18 months, ma'am. We have been focused on exploration and trade. Zara's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Then I think it's time for spring cleaning, don't you? Mung, send word to Admiral King. Tell him to dust off Operation Thunderbolt. And David, her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than a shout. Make sure our alien friends know we are conducting routine military exercises. Wouldn't want them to worry. Aboard the Dreadnought Defiant, Admiral Sarah Kane received the coded transmission with a mixture of anticipation and dread. 23 years she'd served in the Earth Defense Fleet, and she'd never seen the political situation this tense. Admiral, called Commander Lisa Chun from the tactical station. We are receiving priority signals from Fleet Command. Operation Thunderbolt is greenlit. Kane nodded slowly. Signal all ships. Begin acceleration to jump coordinates. And Commander, yes, ma'am. Make sure every alien monitoring station in this sector gets a clear reading of our fleet composition. No llamen, no ustedes. I want them to see exactly what's coming. The Defiant was humanity's newest and largest warship, carrying enough firepower to level a moon. Behind her came 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and 48 frigates. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled outside of Sol System, and every alien government in 3 sectors was about to get a very clear look at it. That on the mining station Deep Rock 7, Foreman Tommy Rodriguez was dealing with his own set of problems. The Korthak had cut off their supply lines, claiming security concerns. The villain Empire had canceled their contracts. Even the usually neutral Zinthri had stopped answering their communications. We have got enough food for maybe 2 weeks, reported Dr. Amanda Foster, the station's chief medical officer. After that, we start eating recycled protein bars and hoping someone remembers we exist, Tommy finished grimly. The station housed 800 miners and their families. Good people who'd left Earth to build a better life in the asteroid belts. Now, they were trapped 300 light years from home, with no way to get supplies or evacuation. Sir, called out communications officer Ben Harris. I'm picking up a transmission from an unknown ship. They're requesting docking clearance. Tommy frowned. Unknown ship? In this sector? Are they human? Negative, sir. Ship configuration is, well, it's nothing I have ever seen before. Minutes later, Tommy found himself face to face with something out of his worst nightmares. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor that gleamed like oil onto the station's lights. Its face was a collection of angular planes and glowing red eyes. I am War Leader Grix of the Free Companies, the creature said in perfect English. You have a problem. I have a solution. And what might that be? Tommy asked, trying not to let his voice shake. The Korthak have placed a bounty on this station. 50,000 credits for its destruction, with no questions asked about survivors. Grix's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. However, I am prepared to offer you a counter-proposal. I am listening. My ship needs supplies. Food, water, fuel cells. You provide these, and I ensure no harm comes to your station. Consider it insurance. Tommy's hand drifted toward the emergency beacon on his belt. One push would send a distress signal toward Earth. But Earth was months away, and this creature was here now. How do I know you will keep your word? Grix's laugh was like grinding metal. Because, human, your species has developed quite a reputation since walking out of the council chambers. No one wants to be the first to test what happens when Earth decides diplomacy has truly failed. Back in the Zenthri capital, Ambassador Crixval was beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. The intelligence reports flowing across his desk painted a picture that chilled his hemolymph. Human fleet movements in 17 sectors, he muttered, reading the latest briefing. Military exercises and systems they have never operated in before. And now this. He gestured to the holographic display, showing a grainy image of a human dreadnought, its weapon systems clearly visible and undoubtedly active. Sir, interrupted his aide, we are receiving reports from the border worlds. Human merchant vessels are traveling in convoy now, escorted by military frigates. Escorted? Crixval's voice rose an octave. They're militarizing their trade routes. It appears so, sir. And there's more. 3 Korthak raider groups have gone missing in the past week, all in sectors where human convoys were reported. Crixval felt his 6 hearts skip a beat. Missing, no distress calls, no debris fields, no survivors. They simply vanished. The ambassador's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among his people. Send an immediate communication to the Human Colonial Authority. Request emergency diplomatic talks. Sir, they're not responding to our communications. Haven't for 2 weeks now. Crixval stared at the tactical display, watching as red dots representing human fleets moved through sectors that had been peaceful for decades. Then we may have made the greatest mistake in galactic history. On Earth, President Malari stood in the Situation Room, surrounded by her cabinet and military advisors. The massive holographic display showed the entire known galaxy, with human positions marked in blue and potential threats in red. Status report, she commanded. General Patricia Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, stepped forward. Operation Thunderbolt is proceeding ahead of schedule. Admiral Kane's fleet has reached the neutral zone and is conducting exercises within full sensor range of 6 different alien governments. Casualties, minimal on our side. 3 cargo ships were attacked by raiders, but our convoy escorts eliminated the threat. No survivors among the attackers. President Malari nodded grimly. In the diplomatic front, Secretary of State Robert Kim cleared his throat. Radio silence continues to be effective. We have received 47 requests for emergency talks in the past week, from governments that wouldn't return our calls a month ago. They are scared, observed CIA Director Janet Walsh. Good. Scared governments make better partners than arrogant ones. President Malari walked to the great window overlooking the Capitol. In the distance, she could see the launch trails of another cargo convoy heading for the stars, escorted by destroyers that gleamed like steel sharks in the afternoon sun. Ma'am, General Hayes continued, there's one more thing. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual fleet movements from several major powers. The Korthak are pulling ships back from their frontier. The villain empire has canceled 3 expansion operations. Even the Nexus Coalition is recalling their exploration fleets. They are consolidating, President Malari observed, pulling back to defensive positions. Yes, ma'am. It seems our silence has been louder than our words ever were. The president turned back to her advisors, her expression grave. Gentlemen, ladies, I want you to understand something. We didn't choose this path. We tried diplomacy, negotiation, compromise. They chose to treat us as inferiors, to attack our civilians, to test our resolve. She paused, letting her words sink in. Now they are about to learn why humanity survived ice ages, plagues, and 2 world wars. They are about to learn why we built starships instead of surrendering to the dark. They wanted to see what Earth would do when diplomacy failed. Her smile was winter cold. They are about to find out. 3 days later, the galaxy learned what humanity meant by military exercises. War leader Grix had made his biggest mistake when he thought humans were like every other species he'd encountered. Standing in the wreckage of what used to be his flagship, he watched through the breach in his hull as human fighters swarmed around the debris field like angry wasps. This was supposed to be easy, he wheezed, green blood seeping from multiple wounds. His second-in-command lay motionless beside him, victim of the explosive decompression that had torn through their bridge. The human pilot's voice crackled through his damaged communications array. Attention remaining hostile vessels. This is Lieutenant Jackson Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to power down weapons and prepare for boarding. Any vessel that fails to comply will be destroyed. Grix laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 60 seconds? Arrogant primates. My fleet has 30 ships remaining. Sir, whispered his surviving tactical officer. Our sensors show there are 47 human ships surrounding us. Where do they all come from? The war leader's 4 eyes widened in shock. Impossible. Our intelligence said the humans had only a few patrol craft in this sector. Apparently, came Lieutenant Blake's voice again, your intelligence was wrong. 50 seconds. Captain Jake Morrison was having a much better day aboard the Lucky Strike. The cargo hauler now bristled with defensive weaponry and was accompanied by 2 destroyers and a heavy cruiser. The villain raiders who had been terrorizing the shipping lanes were learning a harsh lesson about human determination. Jake, Rebecca called from the pilot's seat, we are receiving a transmission from the merchant vessel Golden Harvest. They are reporting Korthak raiders demanding tribute in the Gamma sector. How many ships? They're saying 12 raider vessels, heavy armed. Jake's grin was predatory. Rebecca, Set course for Gamma Sector. Signal the escort fleet. Looks like we're going hunting again. The Korthak won't be expecting military response to a simple shakedown. Marcus observed from his station. No, Jake agreed. They won't. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as her fleet performed the most successful military operation in human history. Operation Thunderbolt had evolved from simple exercises into active engagement with hostile forces across 17 sectors. Admiral, Commander Chen reported, we have just received confirmation from Strike Group 7. The Korthak Raider base in the Omega Nebula has been neutralized. Casualties, minimal on our side. The Korthak, well, they won't be raiding anyone ever again. Kane nodded grimly. And the other fronts? Strike Group 3 has eliminated the villain pirate stronghold near Proxima Station. Strike Group 5 has disabled the rogue Zinthari fleet that was demanding tribute from our mining colonies. Admiral, we have broken the back of organized piracy in this entire region. Good. Signal all groups to consolidate positions and establish patrol routes. From now on, any vessel that attacks human civilians will face immediate military response. Yes, ma'am. Admiral, there's something else. We are receiving surrender offers from 6 different raider organizations. They are asking for terms. Kane's expression was stone. Tell them the terms are simple. Cease all hostile activities against human targets. Release any prisoners they are holding and submit to inspection by our forces. Any group that refuses, she didn't need to finish the sentence that on the mining station Deep Rock 7, Tommy Rodriguez was watching the most beautiful sight he'd ever seen. Through the observation deck windows, he could see the sleek lines of a human destroyer approaching the station, its hull scarred but triumphant. Sir, Ben Harris called out excitedly. It's the EDF ship Courage. They are requesting permission to dock. Granted, Tommy replied, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. Oh, Ben? Send a message to every human settlement in this sector. Tell them the cavalry has arrived. Dr. Foster joined him at the window. What happened to War Leader Grix? According to the destroyer's captain, his fleet tried to attack a human convoy near the Betelgeuse system. Apparently, it didn't go well for him. How not well? Tommy's smile was grim. Let's just say Grix won't be collecting any more protection money. Ever. The arrival of Captain Maria Santos and her crew from the Courage brought news that spread through the station like wildfire. The humans weren't just defending themselves anymore. They were actively hunting down every raider, pirate, and hostile force that had been terrorizing the frontier. How many fleets does Earth have out there? Asked Dr. Foster during the welcome celebration. Captain Santos winked. Enough. Let's just say we have been very busy building ships while everyone else was busy underestimating us. Back on the Zinthari homeworld, Ambassador Crixval was facing the worst crisis of his career. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called to address what they were euphemistically calling the human situation. Honored delegates, he began, his voice shaking. We must address the reality before us. Human military forces have effectively pacified 17 sectors in less than 1 week. Every pirate organization, every raider fleet, every hostile force that has operated in human space has been eliminated or surrendered. Delegate Thexmore of the Korthak hegemony rose from his seat. This is exactly what we warn about. Human military aggression knows no bounds. Aggression. Crixval's laugh was bitter. Delegate Thexmore, your people placed bounties on human civilian stations. Your raiders attacked merchant vessels carrying food and medicine. The humans didn't start this conflict, they finished it. The humans have deployed over 200 warships, protested Delegate Quintal of the villain empire. This is a massive military escalation. Where were these concerns when your people were demanding tribute from human colonies? Crixval shot back. Where was your outrage when merchant crews were being murdered for their cargo? The chamber fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. For months, various alien factions have been testing human resolve, attacking civilian targets, and treating human space as their personal hunting ground. They had expected the humans to complain, to negotiate, to seek diplomatic solutions through proper channels. Instead, the humans had simply stopped talking and started shooting. President Malari stood in the White House Situation Room, receiving reports from across human space. The transformation was remarkable. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates were now secure. Mining operations that had been shut down by raiders were back online. Colonies that had been isolated were receiving supplies again. Ma'am, General Hayes reported, we are receiving communication requests from 17 different governments. They all want to discuss new trade agreements and security partnerships. How nice of them. President Malari replied dryly. The same governments that wouldn't return our calls a month ago now want to be our best friends. Secretary Kim cleared his throat. Ma'am, the Galactic Council is requesting an emergency meeting. They want to discuss normalization of relations and mutual security arrangements. I see. And what exactly do they mean by normalization? Full membership in the Council, with voting rights equal to any other member species. No restrictions on military deployment or territorial expansion. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over all currently occupied systems. President Malari was quiet for a long moment. In other words, everything we asked for diplomatically 6 months ago. Yes, ma'am. She walked to the window again, looking out at the city below. In the distance, she could see children playing in the park, unaware that their future had been secured by the actions of the past week. General Hayes, what's the status of our military operations? All objectives achieved, ma'am. Piracy in human space has been eliminated. Our trade routes are secure. Our colonies are safe. Casualties, remarkably light, ma'am. It seems that most hostile forces were counting on our reluctance to fight. When we proved them wrong, many surrendered rather than face destruction. President Malari nodded slowly. Set up the meeting with the Galactic Council, but make sure Admiral Kane's fleet remains on patrol. Visible patrol. Mung, I want to make sure our new friends remember why they suddenly found diplomacy so appealing. Captain Jake Morrison was enjoying the first peaceful cargo run he'd had in months. The Lucky Strike moved through space lanes that were now patrolled by human warships, carrying supplies to colonies that were no longer under threat. Jake, Rebecca called from the cockpit, we are receiving a priority message from Earth Command. What's the word? The Galactic Council meeting went well. Humanity has been granted full membership with all the privileges we originally requested. Jake smiled. And the price? Apparently, we agree to exercise restraint in our military operations and work within established diplomatic channels for future disputes. Marcus snorted from his station. In other words, we promised to try talking before shooting. That's all we ever wanted, Jake replied. The chance to be heard before being dismissed. The right to protect our people without being called aggressors. It just took a demonstration of our capabilities to get their attention. Think it will stick? Rebecca asked. Jake looked out at the stars, watching as a human patrol frigate glided past in the distance, its presence a visible reminder of Earth's new policy. Oh, it will stick, he said confidently, because they have learned something important about humanity. We are reasonable people. We prefer diplomacy to warfare. We'd rather trade than fight. But when you threaten our civilians, attack our ships, and treat us as second-class citizens, he paused, watching as 2 more human warships appeared on the horizon, their sleek forms cutting through the darkness like steel sharks. When you do that, you learn why we survived everything the universe threw at us to become a starfaring species. You learn that humans are very, very good at war when we have to be. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Defiant, reviewing the final reports from Operation Thunderbolt. In 7 days, human forces had eliminated over 30 pirate organizations, liberated 12 attack colonies, and secured trade routes across 17 sectors. Admiral, Commander Chen reported, we are receiving our new orders from Earth Command. Let me guess. Maintain patrol schedules and keep our weapons visible. Yes, ma'am. But there's more. We are being assigned as the official peacekeeping force for this entire region. The Galactic Council specifically requested our continued presence. Kane smiled. Funny how that works. A week ago, they were worried about human military aggression. Now they want us to be their police force. Orders are orders, ma'am. Indeed they are, Commander. Signal the fleet. We have a sector to patrol and peace to maintain. The Defiant turned toward the outer rim, followed by her escort fleet. Behind them, human merchant vessels moved freely through space lanes that had been death traps just days before. Colonies that had been isolated were receiving supplies. Miners who had been threatened were back to work. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. They were a species that preferred words to weapons, diplomacy to warfare, trade to conquest. But when pushed too far, when their civilians were threatened and their reasonable requests were ignored, they became something else entirely. They became the species that had survived ice ages and world wars, that had turned deserts into gardens and reached for the stars when others said it was impossible. They became the descendants of warriors and explorers, builders and dreamers who had never learned the meaning of surrender. The aliens had wanted to test human resolve. They had gotten their answer. Diplomacy had failed, but humanity had not. And across the galaxy, every species now understood that while humans preferred peace, they were exceptionally skilled at war. The choice, as always, was theirs to make. The silence from Earth was over. The message was clear: treat us as equals, or learn why we are called the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Where once there had been lawless regions plagued by pirates and raiders, now there were established trade routes protected by human patrol fleets. The frontier wars, as historians would later call them, had lasted exactly 7 days and reshaped the political landscape of 3 galactic sectors. Commander Lisa Chun stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned starbase Haven Point, watching as a mixed convoy of human and alien vessels moved through the shipping lanes below. The sight would have been impossible just a year ago. "Commander," called Lieutenant Alex Park from the communication station, "we are receiving a distress call from a Zenthri merchant vessel. Engine failure in the asteroid field. Dispatch Rescue Team 3. Chun ordered without hesitation. Full medical support. Ma'am, shouldn't we check with their government first? Diplomatic protocols and all that." Chun smiled. "Lieutenant, the Zenthri specifically requested human emergency response services in their shipping agreement. We are not rescuing an alien vessel. We are helping a client." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The same species that had once viewed humans as dangerous upstarts now paid premium rates for human protection services. The galaxy's most effective military had become its most trusted peacekeeping force. Down in the station's commercial district, former war leader Grix was having a very different conversation. The towering alien now worked as a security consultant, his intimate knowledge of pirate tactics making him invaluable to the human authorities. "You want to know the difference between humans and every other species I have fought?" he asked his Korthak interviewer, a journalist named Vex Kane who was researching the rapid pacification of the frontier regions. "Please, enlighten me," Vex Kane replied, his translator struggling with Grix's rough dialect. "Other species, they fight until they win or lose. Humans, they fight until the problem no longer exists." Grix gestured with one of his remaining functional arms toward the shipping lanes outside. "Look out there. You see any pirates? Any raiders demanding tribute? Any protection rackets?" "No, but surely some criminal elements remain." "None," Grix interrupted. "The humans didn't just defeat us. They eliminated the conditions that made piracy profitable. They established patrol routes, built supply stations, created legitimate employment for former raiders. Half my old crew now works security for human shipping companies." Vexgain's mandibles clicked nervously. "And the other half?" Grix's laugh was harsh. "The smart ones surrendered early and got jobs. The stubborn ones got funerals." Back on Earth, President Malari was dealing with a very different set of problems. Success, it turned out, brought its own complications. "Ma'am," Secretary Kim reported during the morning briefing, "we have 17 applications for military partnership agreements, 12 requests for expanded trade deals, and 34 applications for human colonies to provide security services. All from governments that wouldn't return our calls 8 months ago," observed CIA Director Walsh dryly. "Indeed, there's also this." Kim handed her a formal document bound in what looked like precious metals. A formal apology from the Galactic Council for their previous misunderstanding of human intentions and capabilities. President Malari read through the document, her expression growing more amused with each paragraph. They are offering us a permanent seat on the Security Council, unrestricted military deployment rights, and preferential trade status. In exchange for what? Continued peacekeeping operations in the frontier regions and a promise to consult with the Council before any major military actions. Consult, not ask permission. Correct, ma'am. They're very carefully not telling us what we can or cannot do. The president leaned back in her chair. You know what the most satisfying part of this is, Robert? Mung? We're getting everything we originally asked for through diplomatic channels. Plus interest. General Hayes cleared her throat. There's one concern, ma'am. Intelligence suggests some of the more militant species are forming a coalition. They're calling it the Traditional Values Alliance, but our analysts believe they're planning some kind of coordinated response to human expansion. How coordinated? Unknown, but we are tracking increased military communications between the Korthak hegemony, the Villain Empire, and 3 smaller aggressive species. Nothing concrete yet, but the pattern suggests they are planning something. President Malari was quiet for a moment. General, what's the current status of our fleet construction programs? Ahead of schedule, ma'am. The new shipyards at Luna and Mars are producing vessels faster than we projected. We currently have 230 active warships, with 50 more coming online in the next 6 months. And our new allies, the Zenthri, have committed to joint patrols in 12 sectors. The Nexus Coalition is providing intelligence, sharing, and logistical support. Even some of the smaller species are contributing ships and personnel to the peacekeeping operations. President Malari smiled. So, if this Traditional Values Alliance wants to test our resolve again, they will be facing not just human forces, but a coalition that includes most of their former victims, General Hayes finished. Excellent. Let them plot. We will be ready. On the bridge of the patrol cruiser Endeavor, Captain Maria Santos was experiencing the strangest day of her military career. Her ship was escorting a convoy that included vessels from 7 different species, all flying under the protection of the Human Defense Alliance. Captain, called her communications officer, we are receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Command. Intelligence reports suggest a large unknown fleet is approaching the Tau sector. Unknown how? Configuration doesn't match any known species in our databases. But Captain, they're broadcasting on frequencies used by the old Raider organizations. Santos's expression hardened. How large? Initial estimates suggest 40 to 50 vessels, including several Dreadnought-class ships. Signal the convoy to take defensive positions. Contact Admiral Kane's fleet and request immediate support. And Lieutenant, yes, ma'am, send a message to whoever's commanding that unknown fleet. Standard warning. This is a protected trade route under the jurisdiction of the Human Defense Alliance. Any hostile action will result in immediate military response. The reply came back within minutes, transmitted on an open channel for all to hear. Human vessel. This is Supreme Commander Thakvel of the Traditional Values Alliance. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The time of human dominance in this region is over. Captain Santos looked around her bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens who had volunteered to serve together. Her tactical officer was Zenthri. Her navigation specialist was a former Korthak pirate who'd reformed, and her chief engineer was Villain. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to engage a hostile fleet that believes they can intimidate us into abandoning our mission. They're about to learn why that's a mistake. She turned to her communications officer. Send reply to Supreme Commander Thakvel. Tell him we don't withdraw. We don't abandon our allies. And we don't negotiate with bullies. Ma'am, should I mention that Admiral Kane's fleet is only 3 hours away? Captain Santos's smile was sharp as a blade. No, Lieutenant. Let that be a surprise. The Battle of Tau Sector lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, the Traditional Values Alliance had ceased to exist as a military force. Some ships surrendered early and were allowed to withdraw with warnings. Others fought to the bitter end and were destroyed. Supreme Commander Thakvel's flagship was found drifting, its crew evacuated, its weapons systems completely disabled by precision strikes. The galaxy learned another lesson about humanity that day. They didn't just fight to win, they fought to ensure the fight never had to happen again. Admiral Kane stood in the wreckage of the enemy command ship, looking down at the defeated Supreme Commander. The alien was still alive, though barely, kept breathing by a species' robust physiology. "What?" Thakvel wheezed through his translator. "Why do you show mercy to enemies?" Kane's expression was thoughtful. "Because mercy today prevents war tomorrow. Because every enemy we spare becomes a voice telling others that surrender is better than destruction. Because that's who we are." She turned to leave, then paused. "Commander, your fleet attacked a convoy carrying medical supplies to a plague-stricken colony. Those supplies included medicine for your own people, who were among the sick. Think about that." As she walked away, Thakvel's voice followed her. "What happens now? Now you go home and tell everyone what you learned here today. That humans prefer peace, but we are very good at war. That we'd rather have allies than enemies, but we will settle for having our enemies fear us. And that the next time someone decides to test our resolve," she paused at the airlock, "there might not be anyone left to surrender." The aftermath of the Battle of Tau Sector reverberated across the galaxy. Within days, 14 different species formally requested to join the Human Defense Alliance. The Galactic Council passed a resolution declaring human-protected space as a zone of guaranteed peace. Trade flourished as merchants realized they could travel safely under human protection. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. Young aliens from dozens of species began applying to human military academies, eager to learn from the warriors who had brought peace to the frontier. Human tactics and strategies became required study in military schools across 3 sectors. The galaxy had wanted to test humanity's resolve when diplomacy failed. They had learned that humans were indeed special, but not in the way they expected. They were special because they remembered that the purpose of strength was to protect the weak, that the goal of victory was lasting peace, and that true power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when mercy served better than violence. The age of piracy in the frontier regions was over. The age of human leadership had begun, and across the stars, every species understood the message that had been written in the debris of defeated fleets and the prosperity of protected worlds. Humanity preferred diplomacy, but when diplomacy failed, they became something far more dangerous than conquerors. They became liberators. The silence from Earth was indeed over. In its place was something far more powerful, the quiet confidence of a species that had proven they could keep the peace because they were unmatched at waging war.